WNHHLP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio. And this hour, it'll be Connecticut Solitary Confinement, even though I only solitary confinement.
So Ann Mazzaro and Barbara Fair coming on to talk. That was a good conversation I had a few minutes ago, Harry. I learned a lot. I tell you what, I love that I was a former police commissioner because I understand the language and the culture. I love that I was once upon a time elected to office because I understand the language and the culture. And I love the fact too that I know what it's like to go to jail. I know what it's like to be behind bars, and I understand the language and the culture. So I felt like I more so than any time, I felt very uniquely qualified to have this conversation with these people today, Harry. Do you know what I mean? I don't always feel that way, but today I felt uniquely qualified to have this conversation.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, the way you worded it, it sounded like you accomplished your goals of being in jail and being a commissioner, but that's not what you're saying. You just say, that you're not gonna apologize for your life. You're moving forward.
Harry, that was so funny. It's like she's not saying that the goal was.
She's like, I reached the mountain. I reached the mountain.
Can you imagine us across country in a van? Ladies from Oprah and Gail. It's nothing like me, Paul, and Harry. Oh my God, that would just be hilarious.
Okay, Barbara Fair's in the hostage room.
All right, let me let her in.
And that's my cue.
Okay, I'm waiting for Ann Mazzaro. She should be jumping in too.
But yeah, so her audio is connecting. So
I see it. Yeah, I see it. So all right, well, so welcome back to LoveBabz Love Talk, the 10:15 show. So we're gonna spend the next 30 minutes talking to Barbara Fair and Ann Mazzaro about solitary confinement and all the work that they're doing on this and where we are so far. So we're just waiting for folks to sign in. So
it looks like Barbara's probably gonna have a bad connection because she's having a problem.
Yeah,
connecting.
Is she? I wonder if she's trying to. Okay.
But yeah, so the Connecticut solitary confinement issue is still alive and well, I see.
Yeah. And that's why, I know they're going to come on and talk about something that they've got going on, because I saw it somewhere, a rally or something. And I mentioned it to Ann Mazzaro in the conversation. And then she started telling me about it. And I was like, oh, no. I want you to come on. Here she is. I want you to come on and talk about it. So, which I love. I love this format that I could just have conversations with people, Harry, and say, oh yeah, you should come on. Hey, I just texted you too because I was worried if you were coming on or not. Good morning.
Yes, unmute.
You have to unmute yourself.
There you go.
Hi.
Good morning. So we're just waiting for Barbara Fair to connect her audio. So I don't know if she's having some tech difficulties. Thanks, Harry. But I was just saying, oh, you look great.
Honey, listen, I
love your hair that long.
Do you like it long?
Yes, I love it. It's very sexy.
If I come see you, I was going to ask you how you liked it long.
No, I love it. I love it. Hey, Barbara Fair, if you could unmute yourself. I see her there, but I don't know if she hears
let me
us.
text her. I'll text her.
She just has to unmute herself. Oh, there she is. She's unmuted.
Okay.
There she is.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
Good morning, Connecticut.
Oh, you've got great hair too. What is this, gray hair day? I'm the only one that don't have great hair. Like,
she does.
To deal with
she
that.
Does.
How's everybody?
Happy New Year. I feel like I haven't seen y'all in ages.
I know,
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I see y'all out there in the streets, you know, when I check social media, but I haven't had opportunity to. I don't know. I was talking to Ann Mazzaro. What were we talking about, Ann? And you were telling me something about solitary confinement, and I was like, oh, y'all should come on and talk about this. And she's like, okay, I'll call Barbara Fair. I think you sent me a press release or something. Something is coming on. So what was that? What's happening?
We have a press conference coming up on
when
Thursday.
Is that?
Yeah.
What time?
11 o'clock on the New Haven Green, I guess.
What are you press conferencing about?
Well, I just wanted to correct it. We'll actually be outside Whaley Jail, Whaley Correctional Center.
Oh, sorry. I would have shown up at the wrong place. Well, that's not the first time.
Yeah.
Well, that's
when you
why
caught up with your email. When you catch up with your email, you just
Barbara knows she has to sort of catch me sometimes.
But the press conference is actually going to be about an unveiling of our new banner and our new logo that we just got done through Wild Design. We're very excited about it. Got billboards up around the state now. Yes,
y'all are doing the damn thing.
We're thrilled.
All right, so update us on where we are with solitary confinement, because we have a new legislative session kicked off. So we're in the middle of that, and we're still in a pandemic. So give us a rundown on what's happening.
Well, right now, we put forth a proposal for legislation before judiciary. We sent it through Gary Winfield, our senator. And it's now in legislative committee, and we're waiting for them to bring it back to us because it has to go through that group before, and they, work with the language, and then they send it back to judiciary, before we get to the part of voting and everything. So right now we're just waiting to get that back and get a bill number. One of our biggest demands was the shutting down of Northern. We actually wanted, we put in the bill, we wanted to shut down by the end of the year. And the governor announced recently that it'll be shut down July 1st. So we're very excited about that. That's just one step toward, a whole mile of work that we have to do. That was our first victory.
So tell people, if people don't know what solitary confinement is, tell them what solitary confinement is and what it looks like here in Connecticut.
It's actually, they put you in this place called Northern. It's a supermax. You can see by its design, a very sick mind designed it to put human beings in. And it's dark and dank. It's a long hall. The cement rooms with a bed, cot, and a sink or toilet inside. And it's a little tiny space, like the size of, not these big bathrooms that you see today, but small bathroom. I think it's 6x9. And so they put people in there, and that's where they stay for 23 hours of the day. They bring them out 1 hour a day to what they have to get their constitutional right to exercise. So they bring them out, put them in a cage, chain them up in the cage, and that's considered their 1 hour of exercise. If they have to go get a shower, because they get a shower, I think 3 times a week, I believe. And they're
wait, what now? A shower 3 times a week? Like you can't shower every day?
Oh, no.
And so what is it thinking? So
is that part of shackled? You're shackled to the shower.
Is that part of punishment?
Yeah.
So that's part of punishment, not to have a shower except for 3 times a week.
That's the rule, so I guess it is.
And the thinking is, what does that do? Why? Do you know why?
The real reason is actually to break a person. They marketed that place as the worst of the worst, but in reality, when we talked to the people and we did the investigations into who goes in there, we found for the most part, the people that end up there are people who resist being abused and treated in an inhumane manner, and they send you there to break your spirit. And in most cases, they end up doing that. They break the person's spirit, but they also damage their mind at the same time.
So to break your spirit does what? To get you to behave a certain way? I mean, I'm just
to make you conform.
Understand the thinking around all of this.
Conform and not resist any treatment that they put against you.
Okay, I understand. So that you won't resist treatment that they give you, so that they break your will, so that you will conform to whatever they want you to do.
Right.
Okay.
Inside and out. I mean, that's all part of, I think, the plan. And the thing to remember is that the UN came here and declared Northern and declared solitary here torture. It is a form, it is torture. What we are doing to human beings.
Right.
And
so this is not outlawed. So solitary confinement is not outlawed. It is still a tool that our prison system is using.
Yes, I just want to explain the difference now between solitary and Northern. Northern is a supermax. It's like a prison inside of the prison. That's where they break you down. Solitary confinement can happen. It's considered 22 hours a day in a cell. That's solitary confinement. So when we talk about ended solitary confinement, we're not just talking about ended it in Northern, because that's extreme isolation. Right. We're also talking about ending it in about 5 other facilities where people are normally not punished, but on a regular basis, that's how they're housed, 22 hours a day in a cell.
And this work of closing Northern, the governor just announced it, but people such as Barb have been working on getting that facility. We'd like to have it not only shut down, torn down, and have the money given back to the people that is so dreadfully harmed. But this work has been going on for years. This is a culmination of years and years of work to get that place closed down.
So if they shut down this place, Barbara and Ann, does it end solitary confinement? Or solitary confinement can happen anywhere, right?
Right, and that's part of our demand. We're making sure that not only is Northern demolished, because that's another part. We want to demolish. No human being should be in there. But we also want to end solitary confinement, which is defined by international community as being in a cell 22 hours or more a day. And we do that on a normal basis in places like Cheshire, Corrigan, McDougal, places like that. Even in our Garner facility, which houses almost 500 people who are seriously mental ill. Now, we got a lot of mental illness in the prison period, just from the dehumanization process. But the seriously mental ill in Gardner, those people are also kept in a cell 22 hours a day. So all of that needs to end, and people need to be treated in a more humane and rehabilitative manner. And that's all we're asking.
Yes. So we know that the prison complex system is the largest providers of mental health services, right? So that in itself is a crazy.
And the mental health service, we don't even want to get on that story. That's another show, the type of service that they get. Yeah. Because some of the mental health workers have already said that sometimes they only get like 10 minutes to even talk to the seriously mentally ill. What they do primarily is keep them drugged up. That's most of the primary is what mental health looks like inside prison.
And you may hear the state of Connecticut call it a lot of things. They have all different names for solitary confinement, but at the end of the day, it's all solitary confinement. They can call it a number of names. And that's part of what our bill's about, is the whole oversight and reporting is just non-existent.
Yeah, and so how are you being received legislatively? Like you have a bill coming. What's the likelihood of it getting through?
I think it has a good likelihood of being through the more we educate legislators, because we had what we call a legislative breakfast earlier this year. And with that, we call legislators together to come in and hear stories from people who've been in there, people who work there, trying to educate them on what solitary confinement actually looks like. And so some of them they couldn't believe that we actually were treating people like that behind bars in Connecticut. And so many of them were horrified. So we were able to get a lot of them definitely committed to ending this at least the torture. And now the solitary confinement part is going to be a lot more work, because correctional officers, of course, and the unions are going to push back, because the way they have things set up, like I said, there's about 5 prisons and that's over half the population, are in cells 22, 23 hours a day. They're going to push back, because no longer can they just sit around and twiddle their fingers and have fun. for 8 hours. They're going to have to actually work, because that means now those people are going to be coming out of their cells. We're asking for, I think, 6 hours or 8 hours a day. I think it's 6, but we're asking that they're out of their cells and they're presented with some kind of programming so that they can actually rehabilitate people if that's what they say their mission is, as opposed to just housing them in a cage 22 hours a day and then letting them go home free.
Wow.
And there are models for this too, Babz. I mean, Barb was able to, you know, she's done this work for so many years, and I'd follow her anywhere. But she was able to connect us with a guy named Rick Ramish, who had been a former corrections officer commissioner in Colorado.
I know him. Yes.
So he made dramatic changes, and some of what we're looking at, I mean, there's models for this, not only what he's done, but he looked around the world. There are models for treating people humanely and not
dehumanizing. Oh, yes, because, you know, Jeff Grant and I do a little show called Criminal Justice Insider. And so we talk to people in and around the criminal justice system. And I was stunned to learn how other places in the world handle, they don't have prison the way that we have prison. Like, well, a lot of places have worse prisons than we do, but there's a lot of places that do prison very differently and very humanely. Like, they're not about shutting people off from their loved ones and isolating people, that they encourage people to be back in population, to connect with their loved ones, to hold jobs, to get access to services and that kind of thing. And it is amazing how the recidivism rate is so unbelievably low.
Right.
So we have people. Models where this could work.
We do. Right. That's one of the things that Rick said when we met with him. I mean, it was really quite. I wish we could get him to speak to our Department of Corrections and our legislators, because one of the things that he said is that the healing, the humanity of this is not. It is certainly people who are incarcerated, and it is also COs, and it is also the community. Because people get the help they need, you know. They come back, they re-enter society in a way that they are not so damaged and tortured that their whole, you know, person is disintegrated.
So, Barbara, how did you come to want to work on solitary confinement? I mean, I know of the work that you do in the community, of course, everyone does, but how did you get connected to solitary confinement? Do you have some personal story about it?
Well, I really got started long before I had a personal story. I was just working with activists around the country, and I actually testified in a meeting that they had, a hearing that they had in Philadelphia years ago, talking about solitary confinement. I worked with people in California, New Jersey, New York. So I've been doing this work forever in other states with other activists. And then all of a sudden it became a thing in Connecticut. And so one of my youngest son had been in Northern. He had just turned 17, and they put him in Northern. And back then they had what they called chronic discipline. So anybody who had over, I think, 3 tickets for any kind of discipline, they can send you to Northern. And so, like I said, that is to break your spirit so that you conform. So they sent my son there. And the first time I went to visit him, he came out all chained up. I swear my heart was just broken. It reminded me of a scene in Roots when they first brought the people here in chains. And that's how they were chained: arms, hands, belly chained.
That's a very striking vision.
Yeah.
If you've never experienced that, it does break. That alone breaks you.
That breaks.
And you don't have to be related to somebody. If you see it, it breaks you.
Yeah. And it broke my heart. And I, they came and they brought him, they chained him to the phone so we could talk. And it took every ounce of everything in me to not break down in tears. Because of course I know my son's suffering. I don't want him to realize I'm suffering seeing him like that. So I held it together until we got through our visit. But once we did, that was it for me. No, this needs to stop. That's what that was my charge. And I vowed I was not going to stop until that place is demolished. And I still feel that way. I want to be there to see that brick by brick taken apart. Mainly not just for my son, but mainly because what I seen what it did to my son. My son went in prison. At 16 years old. And a matter of fact, he wasn't even convicted at the time. He was pre-trial. He was in there for minor stuff, like getting in an argument with some girls about the way they were treating his daughter. It's a long story. But anyway, that's how he ended up in jail in the first place. And because they begin dehumanizing you from day one, that was hard for him. So of course he resisted. So one particular day, the guards had him chained up like normal. And he said the guards like jerked on the chain. You know, they like to just let him know that they're in power. And so he pulled it back. He's a young teenager. So he pulled it back and they both hit the floor. And so the CO wrote up a ticket saying he assaulted an officer, and that's all they needed for him to go to Northern. And that's how he ended up in Northern. And it was just to break his spirit. And they did. And, you know, it was many, many years of psych hospitalization, psych meds, drugs, alcohol, everything, as he tried to cope with what had happened to him. And even to this day, it's almost 20 years later, he's still not himself. He went in as this upcoming hip hop artist, writer, all of that, entertainer, and he came out a broken person. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, you know, as a mother, that battle's never going to end for me till that place that destroyed my son is no longer standing. Mm-hmm. 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 But like I said, now it's beyond that, because I think about all those other sons who don't have people out here supporting them and suffering like that in silence. And so I said, we have to give them a voice.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So you got a bill coming through. What does the bill say? What does the bill do? What do you want it to do?
Ian, do you want to? Or I just didn't want to take up the whole conversation.
No,
so
it's anybody jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Okay. Okay, so Ian can tell you about it. It's called the Protect Bill, and Ian can tell you all what the points that we're looking for.
Okay.
So one of the main things of the bill was to close Northern. So that's happened. The other thing is the stopping this. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I turned this off. Sorry. Stopping extreme isolation, which you just talked about. So Babz knows me, she's laughing. Both of you know me so well. You're not like Barb's like, okay, Aunt, time to get on the call. Okay, make that left turn here. It stopped extreme isolation as the first part of the bill. And it has to do with how long people are held in these cells. So we would like it to be no longer than we're in our bill, no longer than 6 hours a day. The end of abusive restraints. That's another big part of our bill.
And what does that mean? Abusive restraint. What does that mean? Is that the shackling and the whole chains and all of that?
Yeah, but there's even more extreme shackling.
More than that?
Yes, even if in Northern, you do something wrong, like some of the guys say they'll put they have a little slit in their little metal door. That's where they slide their meds and their food. Well, sometimes they say the guys to resist, they'll put up a piece of toilet tissue or something so they can't look in their cell. And by doing things like that, it can end you in what they call in-cell restraints. So that means inside the cement walls that you're already in, they take you and shackle you, hands, feet. The guys say that you can't even sit upright the way they have them shackled and their hands in front of them and their feet and everything. And so they're in this bent position. And they say sometimes they leave them like that for 72 hours.
What?
Yeah. So abusive. That's all you can say. I can't think of any other word. And that's why
you're already in a cell that you.
That's why we were cited last year by the international community as torturing people.
That's deliberate. Like, I mean, you're in a cell, you're not going anywhere. You can't get out. I mean, nobody could get in. I mean, so then you're shackled inside of that.
This could go on for days.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing you mentioned. The other thing you mentioned earlier, Babz, and is a really important part of this, is to maintain and protect social bonds with families and loved ones so that they get free. We want free phone calls, letters, paper, pencil that people can write to people, and 60-minute contact per week. One of the things that came up about COVID, which is another whole thing, is that, we're concerned. They said, oh, well, we're going to have video visits. And one of the things that we cautioned against is that when this ends, they can't continue as a way to keep people that are incarcerated from meeting and being with their loved ones. The other one is a big part of it. I mean, it does promote correction officer wellness, because people that are harmed harm other people. So there's a piece of the bill that is that. And the other one is accountability and oversight. We are really asking for, much like the Office of Child Advocacy, to have an ombudsperson, right, with that oversees this. And Connecticut used to have it, and they cut it out of the budget. I don't know how many years ago that was, Barb.
It's been quite a few years.
But
that's I think it was in 2009, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That they cut it out of the budget. They said it was a fiscal note.
Issue.
And so we're saying you need to put it back in the budget, because now we're in a humane crisis. Because without that oversight, this is how they get to do the things that they're doing, because nobody's looking at them. So we're demanding external input from someone outside of the system. And we want some community members on that. Course also.
There'd be an advisory council, and at least a third of that must be people who are, formerly incarcerated, who are in the community. So that's another thing that we've tried to do in this. And on our steering committee, as Barb told her story, there are also members of our steering committee, an ex-corrections officer, and there are people that are formerly incarcerated who have spoken. Barb has been really great about sharing. We want to find a way to uplift those voices and share the letters that she gets, so that we have to find a way to touch people's hearts. I mean, that's the main thing. And so the big resistance and the communities we're looking at are certainly out in the suburbs, communities that have not been, because of systemic racism, touched, white communities that haven't been touched necessarily by what mass incarceration has done, and specifically solitary. And so
those towns benefit.
Yeah,
they benefit from having those prisons in their town. And so that's the pushback we're going to get from
lowers their taxes.
Right. Yes.
All the economic growth that went on.
Those people are counted. The people that are in prison are counted.
A lot of benefits. Political power.
More money, because those people are counted as part of their citizenship.
Right.
So that's problematic.
That's really.
And there's a disconnect between those communities. Some of those communities are either all white or nearly all white. And so they don't interact with Black and brown people at all. So there's that disconnect. The only thing they understand about Black and brown people is what they see on TV, which is, they're not putting the good stories up there. So, they feel if somebody's in prison, they did something, and so they have to be punished. And they don't look back to see how they're being punished.
So a big part of our work is really to get to those people, and to really, have them hear the stories of people whose lives have been so dramatically impacted by this torture. So
how are y'all doing that? How are you reaching those communities? Like, what's the effort look like?
Well, we just launched, Barb talked about launching our new logo campaign, and we launched a billboard. We got donated to us 2 electronic billboards that we've tried to put in areas where people are and Jackie Buster of Wild Designs created this with us.
Oh, Miss Jackie Buster.
Yes, your neighbor.
Yes.
Really? She did an awesome job. She really did.
I'll be in your
she's very talented.
In a very expeditious manner also.
Oh,
yes.
Very expeditious manner.
I mean,
time is money.
She was a joy to work with. I'll be over there tomorrow to pick up all of our t-shirts and buttons. And so that's one of the ways we're doing it, right? We've got buttons, we have masks, we have t-shirts, and we're hoping to do a postcard campaign. So we'll reproduce the billboards. And I don't know if I sent them to you, but if you look at Jackie's website, I'll give Jackie a plug here, Wow Designs. Her work for us is all in the forefront of her website. So she designed 4 billboards for us that try to bring home, both in words and pictures, the impact of this on our communities and on families. And so that's what we're hoping to do. Yeah, and we're trying to do a media tour. Here we are on your show to get the word.
Yes, this is a good place to start. I would say so.
We're doing education through libraries across the state to reach out to those libraries, those areas where, you know, this stuff doesn't touch them. So trying to educate them. We've had many protests. We've had rallies. We've been up in Hartford. We've been outside the governor's mansion. We've been outside of every facility, outside Northern. We've done so much work to educate people because I really want to see this bill pass this year. We tried in 2017 and all we got was this very watered down bill that practically did nothing. The one good thing it did is that because of my son testifying about what happened to him, and he met some of the legislators, they did pass a bill saying you can't be under 17 to go. Well, nobody should be treated in that manner. So that's why our work continues. But I'm hoping that June we'll get most of what we wanted, if not all.
Okay. So what are you hearing? What are our legislators saying to you? Like how likely is it for you to get everything that you want in this bill?
Like I said, the biggest problem is going to be the unions, because now you won't be able to just sit around all day, make all this overtime. I think a DOC just last year was over 78 million in overtime alone.
Wow.
For a population that over half of them are in cells 22 hours a day.
Right.
At Northern, that we're getting shut down, they were paying 17.5 million with only 55 people in it.
55.
And over 200 staff.
Why?
All this overtime,
so much?
all this good money people are making.
You just need like one person. If everybody's locked in their cell for 22 hours, you just need one person to walk by and you all right in there? It's just, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But I think, Barbara and Ann, once you tell people this is happening, then everybody questions it. You know what I mean? Like if people don't know that this is happening, they'll just think, oh, well, that makes sense. Over time they have to guard and they have to do other stuff. But when you find out the actual numbers, then people are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know anybody who wouldn't hear this and say, that makes no sense.
Yeah. And then when you finish torturing these people, you release them to the street. A young man called me Friday. He had just gotten out of Northern. So he's out on the street. After being tortured, he's out on the street. So I tell people all the time, you may see people on the street and say, oh, they're so bugged out. They were saying the same thing about my son. Oh, look at them. They so bugged out now. I said, yeah, you'd be tortured. You might be a little bugged out now too. But we don't realize a lot of this trauma and stuff that we see in our community are a great deal of those people have been incarcerated. And I don't have to tell you, and with incarceration, the dehumanization starts on day one.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a long sentence to dehumanize a person. And this is what we work on doing. This is the beginning process. Just like when they brought our ancestors here to the shores, the very first thing was to strip them down, dehumanize them, take away their name. This is exactly what they do in U.S. prisons. Exactly.
And the money being made, we were talking the other day, they charge, I didn't know this, charge formerly incarcerated people for their time in prison. Charge them, send them a bill. I said, okay, then if you're making good for Amazon for $1 a day, then you need to be in there and they're revenue sharing. I mean, this is insane, the money.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the other
Yes.
thing I wanted to say, Barb was talking about her son, is that it's close to 4,000 people that are incarcerated pre-trial right now.
Mm-hmm.
4,000,
Yeah.
huh?
You said
Pre-trial.
4,000 pre-trial. So
Yeah,
pre-trial means people are waiting for their trial, and
Right.
and they're waiting because they don't have money to get out on bail, or like,
Right.
why are
They
you
haven't
in
been
pre-trial
convicted of
for that?
anything.
Have not
Okay.
been convicted.
The second person that died in prison, which DOC hides that death, was a 26-year-old dad from West Hartford. He was in Whaley jail with COVID. His lawyers were able to get him released. He died 2 days later in the hospital. So DOC doesn't even mention him as one of the people who died. And he died pre-trial.
Mm-hmm.
So he never convicted of nothing, but he got a death sentence.
Wow.
Those are the stories you don't hear about. And when I talk about my son, I a lot of times I have to say I really purposely forget that I actually was incarcerated years ago. It was like maybe about 40 years ago. Then it was like a house. I don't know if you remember that far back, where it was really a bunch of houses on a farm. There was no cages and all that kind of stuff. But I was there for 15 days. But I remember that very first day, right to today, I can still feel how I felt being stripped down nude in front of strangers, especially coming from a home where you were brought up and raised that your body was private. And for me to be forced to do that, and I couldn't do anything about it, that humiliation still carries me. And I think that's why I bury it so deeply, because I don't like going back to that moment. So that's why I say it doesn't take a long sentence to dehumanize a person and to traumatize them for life. It can be a short stay because they start the process from day one.
Mm-hmm. So tell people how they can get in, if they want to help, if they want to support the work that you do. How do people find y'all? What's the email or the
Go to our website. Yeah, our website has just so much on it. It's www.stopsolitaryct.org. And
that's pretty simple.
Yeah, and there's a link to how to get involved with us, to, our actions, any press coverage is in there. And the other thing that's in there, good.
Thank you, Harry.
Thanks, Harry. The other thing that's in there is a film everyone should watch called The Worst of the Worst. All my fellow white people should watch this. It's called The Worst of the Worst. And then the other thing that's on there is Our Legislative Breakfast. I mean, it sounds like such a dry title. It was so powerful because we had so many voices on there talking about solitary. So go to our site and there it is. You can see, and that's how to get involved.
And big shout out to Yale students who have worked with me so many years to get this work done, and they do it from the heart. And that's what I love about them. They have the best, of course, working with them and encouraging them. Professor Hope Metcalf. We've been working together for decades, but she's able to get students together when they come there to get involved in this kind of work. And they work so hard behind the scenes. So big shout out to them. And the final thing, if you watch The Worst of the Worst, if you see a young kid in there, that's my son. And he talks about, how bad it was for him.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming on this morning and talking about this and raising awareness. Feel free to come back anytime you want.
Yeah.
My platform is your platform. So whenever you want to talk about solitary confinement or you want to update us or update the listening audience, come on, just call me up. Y'all know how to find me, Barbara Fair. You know how to.
Right. My last shout out to my community is there's over 9,000 people in prison. When we give these events, we do it from our hearts to the hearts of the people that are locked out with no voice. So if we have an event, if we had one family member from everybody that's behind bars, imagine what we could get done.
Yeah.
Just imagine.
That's
and the work doesn't end with this bill being passed. we're hopeful. We're praying it gets passed. And, you can imagine who the champions of this bill are. Senator Winfield and
Robin Porter.
Yeah, always. What I'm
always on the side of the community.
Tony Walker's always on board too.
And Tony Walker, yes, the dynamic trio.
Yeah, they are. And now we have this new state senator who looks like we're going to have another good, supporter for.
I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful. I also know how when the legislation is developed, that language is very important. And I know many times what happens is by the time it comes from the legislative office, the language is so watered down that what actually happens is they continue to maintain the same abuse that we're trying to get rid of. So we're very on top of that. We're very cautious about that and hoping that they will not do this again in 2021, that they will actually take a step toward ending this abuse of our people. And one other point another reason why this is very, very important too, in a place like Northern, almost 90% of the people that were in Northern being treated in that manner were Black and brown. So that's why when we live in a town, in a state where the population is almost 75% white, it's a very uphill battle to get them to care about those 90% Black and brown people that are being abused and mistreated.
To care about them.
Hopeful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for coming on this morning. As I said, this platform is your platform. I look forward to getting updated. Once this passes, come back and let's talk about it. Thank you for sharing the website. And I hope to see you all around soon. Be well and be safe.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara Fair. Thank you, Ann Massaro, my good friends. Yes.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Harry.
Hi, this is Babz Rawls-Ivy from New Haven, Connecticut, and you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, streaming live at newhavenindependent.org.
Yeah, you guys can log off if you want.
Okay.